Welcome to the Mind Spark, bringing you the latest news from around the world, once the world's breadbasket, now facing a quiet crisis. For generations, these fields fed families and fueled the nation's strength. But today, American farmers are struggling. Crop prices are falling, markets are vanishing, and debt is mounting. The land that sustained families for decades now brings stress and uncertainty. Behind every statistic is a family forced to consider selling their legacy. Trade wars and shifting policies have left silos full and markets empty. Meanwhile, Canadian agriculture is booming, stepping into markets the US has lost. How did we get here, and where do we go next? The roots of this crisis run deep, stretching back through a series of recent policy decisions that have shaped the fate of American agriculture. What may seem like distant choices made in government offices have had profound, lasting impacts on the daily lives of farmers across the country. Trade wars, especially the escalating tensions with China, resulted in tariffs that effectively shut American farmers out of some of their most important export markets. As these markets closed, prices for crops like soybeans and corn plummeted, leaving farmers with surplus harvests and shrinking incomes. The global marketplace, once a source of opportunity, became a battleground where American farmers paid the price. At the same time, strict immigration crackdowns led to severe labor shortages. With fewer workers available to pick and process crops, fields were left unharvested, and produce rotted where it grew. Equipment sat idle, and farm communities felt the strain as jobs went unfilled and local economies suffered. In response, government aid programs were rolled out, but these payments offered only short-term relief. They failed to address the deeper issue: the loss of reliable, long-term markets and the erosion of trust in the stability of agricultural policy. For many, these checks felt like a bandage on a much larger wound. What farmers truly want is not a handout, but a fair chance to compete and thrive. They want to sell their crops, not simply survive on government support. The pride of producing food for the world is being replaced by anxiety over whether their hard work will pay off. The constant shifts in policy, combined with unpredictable government support, have made it nearly impossible for farmers to plan for the future. Investments in equipment, land, and technology require stability, but today's environment is marked by uncertainty and risk. Farming has always required resilience, but now, more than ever, it demands stability. Instead, uncertainty and doubt have become the new normal in the heartland, casting a shadow over the future of rural America. The seeds of today's crisis were sown by policies that failed to recognize the interconnected realities of global agriculture. Decisions made without understanding the challenges on the ground have left farmers vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Now, many farmers stand on the brink, facing tough choices about whether their way of life can endure. Generations of tradition and hard work are at risk, as families wonder if they can hold on to their land and legacy. The consequences of these policy decisions are rippling far beyond the farm gate, affecting entire rural communities, local businesses, and the fabric of small-town America. The crisis in agriculture is not just about crops and prices, it's about the future of a way of life. The numbers are grim, and the statistics paint a bleak picture for rural America. But behind every data point, there are real people, families, neighbors, entire communities, struggling to hold on to a way of life that has defined the heartland for generations. The real cost is not just measured in dollars and cents, but in the faces of those who have poured their lives into the land. Every handful of soil tells a story of hope, hard work, and heartbreak. David Miller, a fourth-generation Iowa farmer, says, "I work from sunup to sundown, but I'm losing money every year. I wonder if my kids will have a farm to inherit." For David, and thousands like him, farming isn't just a job, it's a legacy, a promise to the next generation that now feels uncertain. Farm debt is at its highest since the 1980s, with bankruptcies rising and families losing land they've worked for generations. Each foreclosure is more than a financial loss. It's the end of a family's chapter, the closing of a history written in sweat and sacrifice. The mental toll is devastating. Stress, depression, and even suicide rates are climbing in rural America. The weight of uncertainty presses down on families, making every day a struggle not just to survive but to find hope. Maria Sanchez, a California grower, shares, "You're supposed to provide, but when nothing works, it breaks you." Her words echo across the country as farmers and their families grapple with forces beyond their control: weather, markets, and mounting bills. As farms close, small towns hollow out, businesses shutter, schools shrink, and young people leave in search of opportunity elsewhere. The ripple effect is felt everywhere, from the empty playgrounds to the silent main streets. The loss is more than economic, it's a loss of culture and identity. Generations of traditions, community gatherings, and shared values are fading, replaced by uncertainty and absence. Rural America is being reshaped by debt and despair. Auctions that once brought neighbors together now mark the end of livelihoods, as families watch their dreams sold off piece by piece. The crisis is eroding the very fabric of the heartland. The American flag still flies, but the barns and fields it watches over are emptying, and the fences that once marked prosperity now stand broken. Communities that once thrived are now fighting to survive. Neighbors gather in church basements and community centers, searching for solutions, clinging to hope, and supporting one another through the hardest times. The American farm is more than a business, it's a way of life under threat. It's the backbone of the nation's food supply, a source of pride, and a symbol of resilience. Families work side by side, determined to endure, even as the odds stack higher against them. The question is, can it be saved? Is there a future where the next generation can plant, harvest, and dream on this land? Or will the sunrise bring only more uncertainty? Or will this cornerstone of the American story fade away, leaving only memories and empty fields where once there was life, hope, and the promise of tomorrow? North of the border, Canada's farms are thriving. When China turned away from US soybeans, Canada stepped in. Exports soared, incomes rose. The Canadian government focused on expanding trade agreements, not trade wars. Membership in global trade blocs gave Canadian farmers access to hundreds of millions of consumers. Strategic investments in research, innovation, and infrastructure have paid off. Canadian agri-food exports hit record highs, with stable prices and diverse markets. The Canadian model shows the power of building trade bridges, not walls. Their prosperity highlights what the US has lost. When you place the agricultural landscapes of the United States and Canada side by side, the differences become immediately apparent, not just in the scenery, but in the outcomes for farmers and rural communities. The contrast is striking, and it tells a story that goes far beyond the surface. Take soybeans, for example. An Illinois soybean farmer might receive around $10 a bushel, which often means just scraping by, barely covering costs after a year of hard work. Meanwhile, an Ontario farmer can earn $12 or even more per bushel, a difference driven by robust global demand and favorable trade conditions. This extra income can be the difference between just surviving and truly thriving. The pork industry tells a similar story. US producers, once dominant, lost their top export market due to sudden tariffs, leaving plants idle and workers uncertain. In contrast, Canadian pork exports to China have doubled, fueling record profits and keeping processing lines busy. The ripple effects are felt throughout each country's rural economy. When tough times hit, US farmers often rely on emergency aid, programs that are reactive, unpredictable, and sometimes slow to arrive. Canadian farmers, on the other hand, benefit from permanent, reliable risk management programs that provide stability year after year, allowing them to plan for the future with confidence. As a result, Canadian farmers are able to invest in new equipment, expand their operations, and build for the next generation. Meanwhile, many US farms face tough choices, with some forced to put up for sale signs or auction off equipment just to stay afloat. This difference is especially clear among young people. In Canada, young farmers work together in the fields, optimistic about their future in agriculture. In the US, many rural youth sit on farmhouse porches, worried about what lies ahead, uncertain if farming can still offer them a stable life. The contrast isn't just about commodity prices or government checks, it's about two fundamentally different visions for the future of agriculture, one that invests in people and growth, and another that struggles with instability and decline. In Canada, you see thriving grain elevators and modern barns, symbols of stability and progress. In parts of the US, abandoned barns and empty fields tell a story of volatility and loss. These differences are visible everywhere you look, in the fields, in the barns, and in the heart of rural communities. Canadian towns bustle with activity, while some American rural roads grow quieter each year. The lesson is clear. The policies chosen by each country don't just affect numbers on a spreadsheet. They shape the destinies of families, communities, and the future of farming itself. The farm crisis doesn't stop at the edge of the field. It ripples through the entire economy. Local businesses suffer, jobs disappear, and rural communities weaken. For consumers, fewer family farms mean less competition, higher prices, and fewer choices at the grocery store. A strong, diverse farm sector is essential for food security. America's global influence is also at stake. As we lose markets, we lose leverage. Countries once reliant on U.S. food now turn to Canada and Brazil. The political fallout is real. Rural frustration is reshaping elections and national debates. The future of the American farm will shape the future of the nation. Former President Trump defends his trade wars, calling them necessary to confront unfair practices. He points to aid packages and patriotic sacrifice, but many farmers say the pain outweighed the promises. Patriotism doesn't pay the bills, says one Ohio farmer. We lost decades of work, and Canada is eating our lunch. Democrats blame Trump's policies for the crisis, but farmers criticize both parties for failing to act decisively. The issue has become a political football, tangled in culture wars and partisan divides. For farmers, the rhetoric offers little comfort. They want solutions, not blame. The crisis is about more than politics, it's about survival. As leaders argue, family farms continue to disappear. The need for real answers has never been greater. Dr. Michael Swanson, an agricultural economist, says American farming is at a crossroads. The old model, relying on massive exports to a few markets, is broken. China and others have diversified, they won't return to U.S. dependence. Recovery requires a new strategy. Diversify markets and focus on value-added products like biofuels and bioplastics. Processing more crops at home means more jobs and resilience. Canada's approach, trade deals, investment, and logistics, offers a blueprint. The U.S. must re-engage globally, not retreat. Farmers are resilient, but they need a clear, forward-looking national strategy. Without it, rural America will decline and the food system will consolidate further. The next few years will decide the fate of American agriculture. The choices we make now will echo for generations. Will we adapt or fall further behind? America stands at a crossroads. The farm crisis is about more than economics. It's about identity, security, and the future. Canada's success shows what's possible with open trade and smart investment. The U.S. must rebuild trust, diversify markets, and invest in value-added agriculture. Support must be stable and forward-thinking, not just reactive. Every American has a stake in the future of the farm. The time for blame is over, the time for action is now. The choice is ours. Will we let the breadbasket empty or fill it for generations to come?